What is up, everyone? Brandon Ferst, aka First Report, representing the First Off the Bench podcast network. Everyone comes off the bench. We are first. Welcome in to the final in the paint episode of the 2024-25 college basketball season. And with me is my friend and co-host, Raider Jim Martinez. He's going to help me break down everything college basketball related. You can find him at Raider Jim 1090. Great to have you back, Raider Jim. How you doing today?
Hey, I'm doing well. Hopefully I'm doing better than my laptop, which is still being a little finicky at times. But, if I have to put the horse in the field and shoot it, that's what I'll do. And we'll buy a new horse.
Amen. Yes. And yeah, I didn't want to look at the analytics of last week's episode, but I have a feeling there was a pretty big steep drop about 8 to 10 seconds in when I said the news. This is a solo podcast. I think everyone went, oops. Raider Jim ain't there, neither am I. No, I'm just kidding, but great to have you back. And obviously, we didn't have maybe the most dramatic overall tournament, but we did have a fantastic Final Four. We are going to get to that. And of course, the women's Final Four, as we have crowned both champions. But the main thing that we're going to be starting off with is kind of this overarching storyline that I think has been over all college sports for the past few years. And it's really kind of the NIL and the transfer portal and what's been going on. Obviously, plenty of stories out there. Robert Morris, a team that I believe they made a play-in game. They were playing in for one of those 16 seeds. I think that might have been the Alabama State game. But anyways, they lose all of their starters to the portal. And then Indiana, another team that I think felt a little begrudged to not get in the tournament, maybe rightly so. But they have no player. Well, I shouldn't say no players. I guess technically, I do believe they have Tucker DeVries. I have to imagine he's coming, but maybe that's just not totally official yet. But the big thing is essentially having to, looks like, unfortunately, Raider Jim, we lost connection on Raider Jim, so I'll vamp for a bit while we hopefully get Raider Jim back. But with the transfer portal happening when it does, it's just very, very difficult to continue to prepare for the season you're in while you are also looking ahead to essentially team building for next year. And that's probably the big issue. We saw it a lot in college football. I want to say it was Marshall actually didn't even go to their bowl game because they legitimately didn't have enough bodies, or at least healthy bodies, to field a competitive team. And we also, I don't know, I think it might have been Scottie Pippen's son from Michigan. Unfortunately, he essentially had to go into the transfer portal before the Sweet 16 started, of course, when Michigan was competing in that. So a lot of the timing of things and kind of the question I was posing to myself and Raider Jim, and hopefully we do get Raider Jim back, was kind of, if you were in charge, what would you do, or how do you think this can be remedied? Essentially without going back, because as much as I'm sure we all kind of whimsically look back on the days where transfers, or at least impact transfers, were pretty rare, or even lateral transfers. It was very rare to see a lateral transfer going from Duke to North Carolina, or, UCLA to Duke might be a better example there, or even Hunter Dickinson, Michigan to Kansas. You used to see a lot of going from a Power 5 school, dropping down maybe to a mid-major because, hey, you know what? Maybe my talent isn't built for this level, unfortunately. And now, again, we're seeing a lot more lateral movement. I personally, I understand, like, I know these things need to happen. I've been a proponent of paying the players. I've said multiple times, I'm a big believer in the free market. If someone is willing to pay you for your talents or services, you should be able to get paid. Obviously, if those services are legal and above board. And last time I checked, basketball is. So, and all sports are. So I'm not against that. And I don't think we are going to go back, nor should we. But a couple, little things I threw out there that I was jumping around in my brain if I was kind of king for a day, if you will, in the college basketball scene. Essentially, one of the main things, I don't know if it's possible, and I don't know if it's even, something that can be even accurately or honestly discussed, but I really truthfully believe that you have to get out from underneath the umbrella that is the National Collegiate Athletic Association, aka the NCAA, because the NCAA has been and is still against paying the players. And essentially they were forced by the courts to do it. The only problem is when that happened, the courts just assumed that everyone would therefore be working in good faith. And I personally do not think that that's happening, because the NCAA was making a lot of money and then that money got cut. Now, they are now put in charge of relegating this, or regulating, I should say, this new system that is essentially costing them money. What is the reason for the NCAA to essentially say, yeah, you took the money from us. Now let's figure out a way to make this even worse for us financially. I think there was a lot, there wasn't a whole lot of looking beyond the original problem in the courts, and just assuming that the NCAA was going to be an altruistic entity in this, where the evidence is to the contrary. Let's just be honest. The NCAA is essentially the Olympic Committee and or FIFA light. If they had the global overreach that those two entities do, trust me, it would be a bigger story. But the NCAA is not an institution that is built on trust and transparency, period. And I'm being as nice as possible right now, just so, don't get too much hate. But it is a very, let's just say, sketchy organization, and you can go look through the time. So I think overall they need to get out from underneath the NCAA and maybe embrace club sports. If you want, we see it in certain sports. It used to be ultimate frisbee. This was like back when I was in high school, and I'm not going to say how long ago that was, but ultimate frisbee was kind of that club, that club sport at the NCAA level that wasn't officially sanctioned, but you had certain, things. And even more notably this past, I don't know if it was this season or last season, I believe it was Arizona State's club team, or anyway, a club ice hockey team actually took down the number one, like, Division One, the Denver. I think it was Denver. I think they were number one. They were definitely defending champs. I believe they're going for a second, maybe this weekend. I'm not sure. But anyways, so club is just kind of a way. It's essentially intramurals and things like that. A lot less overreach from the NCAA. Again, that is not an easy hurdle or rock to get out from underneath. So I'm not going to sit here and pretend that all you got to do is snap your finger and everything goes back to normal, and everything's hunky-dory. Now, I do have a couple, thoughts, if for whatever reason, or I shouldn't even say if, but when, the NCAA they're not going to get away from that. I really do think contracts are going to be needed when it comes to NIL for certain situations. Now, a lot of what, American sports fans focus on at the collegiate level are two sports: basketball and football. Obviously, baseball, hockey, and, track and field, and, they're there. But you don't have New Year's Day where, okay, if you're a football fan, you got wall-to-wall college football, March Madness. You don't have that for the other sports. So the two big ones, and financially, football and basketball carry pretty much every other sport financially, at, the D1 level, and probably even down further just at lower levels, terms of the money that's being brought in the lower divisions. So, maybe if you put like a threshold on, okay, if an NIL deal is signed, but if it's over 50,000, then contracts are going to need to be negotiated. And the reason I bring that up, and now this is kind of the moment for me to kind of show my impartiality, because while the NCAA losing out on money is not something I'm going to lose sleep over, I also don't think it's right for kids to transfer to a school, get an NIL check of $1 million and play for, let's say, 2 or 3, 4 games, and then go, you know what, maybe I'll take a red shirt and see if I can hit the bank again. And someone will probably pay them. Now the school is out $1 million, which in the grand scheme of things isn't terrible, but that's $1 million that they just lost, but they still need to essentially replace that player. And I do think when contracts become a part of it, now you're going to be talking about players unions. Trust me, there is not an easy way to split this baby. There never is. But this is a very messy situation. So a lot of the suggestions I'm throwing out there, trust me, I know there are a lot of flaws in this plan. I just don't know how to get through that, because what's working right now, or what is happening right now, isn't working in my mind. And I really do think if it continues over the long term, it is going to affect the schools and the sport overall. And that is what I worry about. The ability for March Madness to be madness. And I really do think this was just 1 year. And, just 2 years ago, we had the craziest tournament ever, with San Diego State, Florida Atlantic, and Miami of Florida all making the Final Four. Excuse me. So it's kind of maybe a get back to things, but I do wonder if, we have another tournament next year where all 4 number 1 seeds are in it and we don't really have competitive basketball. That's going to lose interest. Now, the other thing I did want to kind of one idea I had was maybe, and this is another one that's very kind of, I don't know how or why or how we can get her done, but instead of doing years of eligibility, why not maybe an age limit? Whether it's 23 or 24, if you want give yourself essentially 1 year opportunity to get a medical red shirt and 1 year opportunity to just essentially not play. You still have 4 years, assuming you're going into college at 18. Now, again, I do know there are backsides of this, because there are certain members of our military that, who knows, they're going to go give 4 years and it's for our country, which is amazing and should be absolutely celebrated. But when they come back, then what? They don't really have any eligibility. And then on the other side, I'm looking at BYU. I believe it's a 1 or 2 year mission they have to go on before they can even play on the team. So again, that's going to hurt them, but there needs to be, because we do have a situation where, some of these kids, they're coming back for, Cam Rising in football is another example, and, really unfortunate with his injuries, but coming back for your 8th or 9th year, like, I'm sorry, Cam, like, I apologize that you hurt yourself and you missed 3 seasons for a season-ending injury, but you got to leave. Like, it's time to go. You graduated 4 years ago. You can't keep playing here, or we go to club again. Like, there's ways out of it, but goodness, they are very, very sticky and messy. And the question then becomes, the entities that are able to make these changes, do they want to do the actual heavy lifting that is necessary? I don't think they do. I'll be honest. It's unfortunate. But I am a very pessimistic person. I prefer to refer to myself as a realistic person, but I will listen to people who say I am pessimistic. So, and then the last thing I do want to kind of maybe throw out there, and I would assume this is, I'll put it in air quotes, the easiest hurdle to clear. And I do think it's the timing of the opening of the transfer portals. Again, I mentioned it to where I think December 21st is the football transfer portal, or the winter sport transfer portal to get you ready. Or no, I'm sorry, the fall to get you ready for the winter. And then I think April or March 20th might be is the cutoff for fall to spring signups for school, so you can get your classes and things like that. So there is a rhyme to the reason why the dates are the way they are. However, I think in this world where 80% of school is online, we have players that have graduated. I bring up Cam Rising again. They're not going to the school, but they still technically have years of eligibility. Like, I feel like we're splitting hairs in this situation when it could be very easily remedied, when we're looking at others and just saying, with a magic wand going, yeah, sure, that works. Like, why can't we just wave that magic wand for these over here that would help a lot more people and programs going forward? So again, the biggest thing, and I didn't expect to have to kind of vamp like this. I don't know if we're going to be getting Raider Jim back. Haven't heard from him, and I don't want to stop the pod to text. So we'll hopefully get him back next week. He might actually be taking that computer out to the field as we speak, literally. But so I think my kind of in conclusion for this long-winded how to fix college sports with the NIL transfer portal and things like that. The NCAA either needs to get on board and become a helpful partner in this problem-solving conversation, or they need to get the bleep out of the way. Because college sports, notably college football and college basketball, are some things that I enjoy on a sporting level, probably more than I would put it in my top 5, definitely. I mean, I love baseball, Major League Baseball. I love the NFL, but there is nothing better than a Saturday morning in October, November, knowing if you got nothing to do, there is football everywhere, everywhere. Especially with these days in streaming, it's not even just D1 anymore. And then, so for me, and then obviously the Thursday and Friday, that first time of the tournament, where you see everything in front of you and you just know I'm going to get some great basketball. I don't want to lose those things. And I do feel like we might be heading down that route possibly, but again, I feel like there's a lot of track to go down before we go off the cliff. If someone could just maybe start putting some plans together to maybe build that bridge to get us over this. But again, I don't know if the NCAA wants to build that bridge, and that is the problem. So moving on to some more lighthearted stuff, actual basketball on the court. We're going to start on the women's side of things. Their Final Four happened kind of before the men's. They ran the Friday, Sunday situation, and UConn, for the 12th time under Gino Auriemma, they win another national championship. They dominate everyone through this tournament, including the two teams that they beat, or they faced in the Final Four, UCLA and South Carolina, which South Carolina kind of became the new UConn, or at least was the new power. UConn was very dominant. The only team, and even this, their closest game was to USC. Only lost by 14. Nobody was really close to UConn. I think it was 34 and 28, respectively, in the semifinal and national final. So congratulations to the UConn ladies, and obviously Gino Auriemma. But I also do want to shout out Paige Bueckers, because Caitlin Clark, Angel Reese, Camille Cardoza, Cameron Brink, over the past 2 years when we've kind of seen college basketball really blow up, unfortunately, when that was happening, Paige Bueckers or Bueckers, I apologize, I'm not great with the names, and I've heard it referred to multiple different ways, so I don't really know, but she unfortunately had to fight through a lot of injuries, And kind of when all that was going down, she was unfortunately down herself. But to see her and Gino Auriemma kind of embrace in the final seconds, they pull her off so she can get her standing ovation. She stuck it out at UConn. She stuck it out in basketball. I could not be happier for her and that whole team, but especially Paige Bueckers, because she worked so hard and she is such an immense talent. I knew Paige Bueckers' name long before I knew Caitlin Clark, Angel Reese, Camille Cardoza, and Cameron Brink, and all the other fantastic female athletes we've seen come out in the last few years. And it's just unfortunate because the injuries kind of made her a bit of an afterthought, but she will be, I believe, more than likely, the number 1 pick in the WNBA draft, but fantastic story there. Also, one other, not a great story, but really does kind of make you think. Unfortunately, I saw this after UConn women won, but Gigi Bryant, of course, the daughter of Kobe, who passed away with Kobe in that helicopter crash. She would have been a freshman on this team. And, it's just sad. It's never not going to be sad. It's a tough little twist of the knife on that one, but I know that they would have done so well with her, and I know they are honoring her the best way they can going forward. So once again, congratulations to the UConn Lady Huskies, Gino Auriemma, Paige Bueckers, and everyone involved. Kind of taking the throne back from the men. 3 straight years of UConn championships, back-to-backs on the men's side, and the women kind of regained their foothold at the top of the mountain in the ladies' game. So congratulations going forward. And finally, going to finish things up with the Final Four review. Obviously, at least on the men's side, we're going to work backwards, or I'm going to work backwards through this one. Obviously, the national championship was a fantastic, all basketball, all the games this weekend were fantastic. Every team that was leading at half in these 3 games, they all lost. So you can tell kind of the back and forth nature of this one. But we're going to work backwards. National championship, Florida wins their 3rd title in school history, first under Todd Golden. They win 65-63. They come back against Houston. They were down by, I believe, as much as 12 in the second half, early in the second half, but a fantastic effort. Because, look, when you're down 12, that's one thing. But when you're down 12 to Houston, that's a very big ask. They go out, they get the job done. I think the biggest topic that is going to be talked about is obviously the final play. Houston unable to get a shot up for a chance to either win or tie the game. I think they had like 13 or 14 seconds. Obviously, a very unfortunate situation. Houston goes up, take the shot, and double pumps and is coming down and realizes, if I don't drop this ball, it's going to be a travel and a turnover. So he just kind of drops the ball and is helplessly looking for any one of his teammates to come pick the ball up as we tick down 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and then a scrum for the ball. The game is over and Florida wins the national championship. Personally, I don't have any problem with the play call. I think they got the ball into the right guy's hands. It was just fantastic defense. The screens seemed a little, they were obviously running him off of screens, and the timing of it, at least the back screen, or the last screen, I should say, I think that kind of threw everyone off besides the defender. And a fantastic defensive performance in that final possession, and really throughout this entire game. 65-63 in a season where we saw, Alabama beat BYU 113-88. So it's kind of going back to the basics here with these two teams. The other storyline that kind of did jump out to me was the inconsistency of the reffing, or at least the officiating, I guess I should say. I think it was 4 or 6 total fouls called in the first half. I think there were 28 or 30 called in the second half. Look, I've said it multiple times through all sports. You need to be consistent. If you're going to be bad for both teams. If you're going to be an MLB umpire and you're given 2 inches off the plate, give 2 inches off the plate to everyone. If you're going to call ticky-tack fouls, call ticky-tack fouls from the start of the game to the end of the game, because it's very unfortunate for Houston and Florida to play a very physical game in the first half and go, wow, they're really letting us play. And then the final 20 minutes of your half or of your season, they are very much not letting you play. But Todd Golden, that was a very well-timed technical. And I do think the play of the game was that block from Hawk. And then I don't think it was Elijah Martin who put it in, but that kind of 5-point swing, if you will. I think that got Florida to within 4 and really got the crowd in that place back into it, because playing in San Antonio, a very pro Houston crowd. Kudos to Houston, though. I wanted Houston to win this game for Kelvin Sampson's sake. He has 799 career wins. Would have been very poetic and fantastic for him to get his 800th win while also getting his first national championship. Unfortunately, look, it didn't happen. And Florida and Todd Golden, they get the job done. But again, Houston, I think, was the better team. They held Walter Clayton Jr. scoreless for the first half, which I didn't think was possible, even knowing how good Houston truly was. Absolutely gutty performance from Florida to win this, and from Houston to battle. Not just in this one, but the game we'll get to momentarily as we do work our way backwards back to the semifinals. The first semifinal this past Saturday was Florida taking down Auburn. And as I mentioned, all of these games essentially had halftime comebacks. Auburn dominated Florida for majority of the game. But last 5 minutes, it was I don't want to say a choke job, but I also haven't gone back and rewatched the final 5 minutes. It wasn't ideal. And I think the only reason I don't think it was that dramatic is because of the Heimlich maneuver that was failed in the Duke-Houston game that I'll talk about momentarily. But yeah, Auburn felt like they were in control pretty much the entire game. They essentially were able to kind of do whatever they wanted in the first half offensively. Florida and Todd Golden made their adjustments. They got the job done, and they take down Auburn. They, of course, would go to the national title, win it all, but they win 79-73. Bruce Pearl, fantastic run with Auburn. I thought it was really cool. Obviously, Charles Barkley, an Auburn alumnus. He's part of the TBS crew, which, I mean, for a guy who probably watches like 8 basketball games, college basketball games, before he gets put onto March Madness talk, like, and I love Chuck, don't get me wrong, I love Charles Barkley. He's absolutely hilarious, but he's more of a comic or a clown rather than, I mean, put him next to Seth Davis. That's just not fair to anyone. Seth Davis probably watches more college basketball nightly than Charles does before the tournament starts. So that was a little tough. But anyways, Charles Barkley kind of greeting all the Auburn players as they, obviously were heartbroken, shaking their hands, telling them to keep their heads up. He was very proud of Bruce Pearl and the guys. And really, again, like, you lost to Florida, the eventual national champs. Obviously, you want that one back, and there were some mistakes made. But you can't really beat yourself up too much over it. Fantastic season for Auburn. I think probably one of the more impressive regular seasons, maybe minus the last 4 games. But, I mean, there was a stretch where they had won like 4 or 5 straight games against top 10 teams at the time. It's pretty incredible, and just a little short against the eventual national champs. And the nightcap on Saturday, wow. I think I could sit down and watch this game again, and at the same moment of whatever 10:30, I would shake my head and go, surely I misremembered this. Surely there's no way Duke loses this game, but Duke loses to Houston 70-67. The big story here, obviously, is the final 10 minutes for Duke. They score 1 field goal the entire 10 minutes. Houston down 12 or 14, whatever it was at that time. They end up coming back and essentially sinking some free throws to clinch it. We had a very unfortunate miss by Proctor, I believe, on the front end of the 1-and-1. And then it was compounded by a Cooper flag over the back call. Look, I know there's a lot of people kind of belly aching about the officiating in that game and really overall. Look, I get it. I think of it very similarly to the James Bradbury call from 2 years ago in the Super Bowl. And yes, this is your daily reminder, weekly reminder here on the podcast that the Philadelphia Eagles are Super Bowl champions. But 2 years ago, of course, that didn't happen. They lost in the Super Bowl, and the game kind of swung on a James Bradbury holding call on third down that essentially gave the game to Kansas City. The call was correct. It was holding. The question was maybe the best timing, in the interest of wanting drama and things like that. But look, officials aren't supposed to make that call. I have no problem if they do, but I don't begrudge them. A foul, a penalty on 1st and 10, the first play of the game versus the most pivotal game, or most pivotal play of the game, it needs to be officiated the same. And Cooper flag went over the back. Maybe it would have been better if they didn't call it and we could see what happens and play it out. Okay, great. But the big thing is, and everybody wants to jump on Cooper flag for not having a great final 10 minutes, but he was the only one that, was actually doing anything. It was a bad performance. And for Duke to fold like that, I think it really does show the difference in a young, very talented, I'm probably the most talented team in the country was Duke. I have no problem saying that. However, that talent is very young, very raw, and I think the lights got very bright, and I think they started about 10 minutes, started to go, wow, we're going to the national championship. You cannot do that, especially against a veteran team like Houston. I think Houston and Kelvin Sampson, huge kudos. That team never quit. I think probably any team in the country would have quit in that moment, except for Houston, and it worked out for them. Personally, I am, I had 3 separate futures that I set out. I think I set one in January for Duke. I set one in February, and then I set one at the start of the tournament. I think it was $3 $25 bets, so 75 total for, I think, a total payout of close to $400. Nothing crazy odds-wise, but I think the shortest odds I got were 2.5 to 1, and that was my when the tournament started number. So that was a bummer for me because I, at 10 minutes, was kind of counting my money because I had just watched Florida struggle with Auburn, and I'm watching Duke absolutely dog walk Houston for the first 30 minutes of this game. I'm thinking, all right, betting account, we're going to have everything for Breeders' Cup and horse racing for the summer is all going to be fueled and bankrolled by Duke, and they didn't get the job done. John Schreier got to use this as a learning experience, learning opportunity. Cooper flag, same. There are a lot of learning opportunities for the Duke Blue Devils, but I think this was the biggest kind of difference in maturity. And it really did show at, probably for Duke, the worst possible time. So now with that, we are going to wrap up the 2024-2025 college basketball season. Oh, Raider Jim is back.
Sort of.
Hey, there you are. How you doing?
I'm claiming censorship, and I don't appreciate it.
Well, I figured, I had said that, Raider Jim might be out in the field, actually, taking that laptop to the great beyond. But I'm glad that, you're at least back. I kind of did all my stuff, but I do want to kind of hear some of your thoughts on some of these topics. If you don't mind, I'd love to tee up, as we kind of just roll through, kind of do, maybe
Please
reset
do.
Raider Jim's thoughts here. But obviously, I think when you left, we were talking Robert Morris losing all their starters to the portal, and then Indiana essentially not having a player officially. Again, I think Tucker DeVries is pretty much there, but maybe not fully enrolled, blah, blah, blah. So if Raider Jim was king for a day, or not king, but or president for a day, how would you fix this, of course, without kind of going back to the old system, which I think we all understand is not going to happen?
Well, interestingly enough, and I don't know if this was on the agenda or if you spoke about it, but the hearing that took place just a couple days ago, and quite honestly, usually we go through everything that's on the list and then we have a final thought. My final thought is, I'll kind of just lead with that, which is the Final Four as we saw it this year. How often do we see all the number ones in there? We really don't. And who really had a chance to challenge them? There were a few challenges, but when it came right down to it, the Dukes, Duke had to be upset in order to be taken out. And was it that big of an upset? Maybe not. And now, is this going to be the norm? And because of the transfer portal, is this going to be the norm? When you are watching these games, I can't tell you how many times I heard, and there's Brandon Ferst. This is going to be his third NCAA Final Four in the last 3 years. Now, he was with Baylor last year, and he's playing for Kentucky this year, and he played for Houston 2 years ago. As long as these kids have the ability to change at their own will, or to follow their coach. Let's talk about Ben Sturtz as an example. There he is. One day he's here with his coach. The coach leaves, he follows. And what happens to that program now? Is that program going to go the way of, well, we can't compete in Division I anymore because we just don't have the bucks to do it? The thing is, and I know you asked me a specific question, what would I do to change it? I would take it to the courts. However, when you look at, if you read any of the transcript from what happened in the courts on Monday, what an S show that was. Nobody made any decisions. Student athletes came out and made their opinions known. You had former players, a former collegiate player, I believe he was from Washington. And he says, hey, I'm getting paid the same. He goes, I was pretty recognized when I was playing. I did pretty good. I made the same player who's not even on the starting, lineup. And now they're talking about, well, we're going to reduce rosters and we're going to have to watch the scholarships that are out there. And then then they're talking about this X amount of billions of dollars, and we can go back and do some retro payments to people, try to even out things. But then they said the majority of that will probably go to football and basketball. Now, I assure you that doesn't mean it's going to women's basketball. It's going to men's basketball and football. And what happens to the girls softball team? What happens to the guys that are playing baseball? I mean, those guys get out of there. There's not a European league they go to like with basketball. They are going to either play single A, double A, maybe triple A. It depends how good they are. And these guys are bunking, 3-4 to an apartment and riding on buses and eating top ramen for the next 5 years, trying to break into the majors. Something needs to be fixed. And I like to think, they're Mr. Know-it-all. He knows everything. No, I really don't know how to fix this one. I don't know how you reset it without getting tangled up in months and years of litigious action, because that's what's going to happen. Libby Dunn, she said, hey, you can't do this, what you're talking about, because I'm not just an athlete. I'm a good athlete and I'm a good business person as well. And when you start doing that and you're going to undervalue what I really bring to the table, she's not wrong. She's not wrong about that. You look at the flag from Duke. I couldn't believe it. I sat there. I was trying to explain the NIL to somebody. I said, this kid's on an AT&T commercial in the middle of the tournament. You would have never seen that 2 years ago. So what do you do to fix it? I don't know. You have to blow it up. There is talk that there is an attorney involved with this case, or I believe it's an attorney. And they're saying his effort is to just basically blow up the NCAA.
Well, and that was my thing, and I don't want to fully rehash it, but I think they need to get out from underneath the umbrella of the NCAA. I legitimately, you talked about that court case, and I'm glad you brought it up. Ironically, I almost didn't send the rundown to you on Tuesday because when I opened up my internet or my browser to send you, the first page was NCAA huge ruling in courts that will, and I was like, oh, I got to read this. And I did read it. And again, it was a whole lot of nothing, a whole lot of kicking the can. And I brought up that the NCAA has no like real want and or desire to fix this. The NCAA lost a lot of money with the NIL deal. And now they're saying, okay, you are the ones who like need to police this. And they went, no. Or maybe didn't say no, but they're acting as if it's no. And I just personally, I don't think there's any reason for the NCAA to fix this. And that's the problem. You're right. I think they need to, again, I brought up club sports. I don't know the exact of that. I don't know how that fully goes down. There's maybe a lot of things behind the scenes, but you have to get out from underneath it and you have to reset a system starting from scratch and allow everyone to kind of set the rules there. So, and then
somebody has to police though, because you're going to have the big divisions with the big money. I'll tell you what I watched in the Final Four or the NCAA championship, and as the last six, we start at the Sweet 16, let's say, and the sports page or the sports feeds were all, as soon as somebody lost, well, these kids already said they're not coming back. This coach already said he's moving on. This guy says he's going to be out of here, next year. I mean, and just blatant. And again, when you're doing that, how does a coach sit in somebody's living room or send his assistant coach and say, your kid needs to come play for us? The only thing they're going to guarantee is, hey, come play for us. We got a good chance. And you know what? There's a chance that this might happen down the road where they actually snap me up at this school. I'll get then the recruiting becomes, I promise I'll take you with me when I go. And that's just the way it is. But again, this hitting close to my sports heart and my home, this could have been Gonzaga's last chance to have a legitimate shot at the national championship, because you know what? They're good and they can recruit good and they can recruit good to be competitive in the West Coast Conference. Well, guess what? They're not in the West Coast Conference anymore. They're going to be playing a different caliber of ball next year when it comes regular season time. And they've got good boosters, but they don't have deep pocket boosters like some of these other universities do. And that's probably going to be, that's when now when Gonzaga loses 6, 7, 8, 9 games and you say, oh, they don't have a chance, that's probably going to be the case.
Yeah, it's very unfortunate. And I am just hoping that this year was kind of a one-off with all 4 number 1 seeds. And not only that, but if number 1 seeds make it, that's fine. But I think for me, it was the lack of competition or at least competitive games that kind of got us there. It seemed like every game started 15-4. And it was just, ugh, you never really got into it except for maybe a few here and there. But now the next topic I kind of went over, obviously, UConn. The UConn women kind of regain their title, or at least back to the mountaintop. 12 titles for Gino Auriemma. Raider Jim, your thoughts on UConn basketball or women's basketball back on top?
Dynasty. I think they definitely are the legitimate foundation to establish a dynasty. I mean, it was USC was the closest game, and that was 14 points. And what they did on that final game, I was just like, wow.
I think I was like 8 minutes left in the second quarter is when I was like, I got home, I was able to turn it on, and it was like, oh, okay, never mind.
Right.
I want to watch, but I mean, it's a 14-point game. Like, I'll see all next year. But yeah, fantastic.
No, he's a fantastic coach, fantastic program, and they're going to repeat. I guarantee you on that one.
Yeah, it's kind of ironic that we have the all this uncertainty and all that stuff of this and that, and then here's UConn and Gino Auriemma going, hey, we just won another, no big deal. And not only again, this was a like 2004, 2002 UConn tournament run to where it's like, whoa, this is incredible. I think there was one game, they were up by like 84 points, and it was online like that. At one point, the live bet where it was an 86.5 point spread. Like, I don't, that's maybe a little dramatic. I don't want to see that type of beatdown, but it just goes to show you what UConn has done. And then obviously,
There is a young lady from San Diego on that team.
really,
Yes, there is, and I have been nudging and nudging and nudging because there is a chance that the young lady can be coaxed into coming on and talking with
oh
us.
my goodness, that would be incredible. Yeah, I
Yes,
mean,
indeed. Lady Husky in the house.
that would be awesome.
Post
And
on that.
I did mention when I kind of talked about it a little bit of I don't want to, not a sour note, but I do think it's something to kind of take a moment to reflect on that. I did see that Gigi Bryant would have been on this team. She would have been a freshman, obviously. If everything had gone differently on that fateful day, but just something again, like take a moment. And then I also shouted out Paige Bueckers, who again, I kind of was a bit of an afterthought through injuries with the Caitlin Clark, Angel Reese, Cardoza, Cameron Brink rise last year. She unfortunately, bit of an afterthought, gets her roses. And I don't know if you saw the embrace that her and Gino had at the end of the game. It was very, very special. So, but and then your thoughts on the men's Final Four, Raider Jim. Obviously, I kind of worked backwards. If you want to go, your thoughts on the national championships and the semifinals, or however you want to go about it, but your thoughts really on a wild Final Four.
I think somewhere along the way, and if you look at the back transcript, somewhere along the way, I'm pretty sure I said I won't be surprised if Florida takes out Duke. That's
Yeah.
for sure. And it ended up that Florida played a heck of a game against in this Final Four. It was Houston's to lose.
Mm.
It was Houston's to lose once they got that double figure. And I'm always screaming when I'm watching a Gonzaga game and they're up by 12 or 14, but they're not. They never get up to 20. They never get up to 22. And I'm always screaming, you gotta, be sportsmanlike, but don't let
Yeah.
the lead dwindle down. And hats off to Florida. They did what they had to do. They didn't lose their composure. I will say I thought the young man on Houston, the hot shot shooter, the CJ
Mm.
Pryor, correct?
Yes.
I think he
OJ.
tried a little too hard. I think he was I don't think he was believing the press. I just think he felt the pressure of the expectation. They expect me to go out there now and keep this alive or increase the lead because he was putting up some shots that were not they were ill-advised, I felt. And some of their shots were just falling short. The young man at the end who played smart because he knew they're gonna nail me and they're gonna call it dead if I touch it. But there's the mental part of that. I mean, that young man is gonna live with that for the rest of his life. Unless he can come back and get involved in a championship scenario somewhere along the way and at least push it to the back stage of his mind. Wow, that I don't care who you're rooting for. You don't want to see that kind of mental pressure put on any athlete, men's, women's, kids, high school, doesn't matter. What a terrible, terrible thing. And I thought they showed good sportsmanship on the
Mhm.
Florida side to come up to him. Of course, then then I went back in time and thought about Adam Morrison laying face down on the floor after Gonzaga blew a big lead and ended up losing to UCLA, and he could not contain himself after that. So, all in all, I thought the championship game it lived up to the hype. That's for sure, and so did the Final Four. I thought it was very, very good. Uh, Too bad to see the whole season end. When it got into that second half, I just kind of looked around. It's like, wow, really? Are we down to the last 20 minutes?
Yeah.
After it seems like it was just Halloween in November and those tournaments getting started. But no, it was good. And I hope I'm absolutely 100% wrong that this, all the number one seeds playing just happened this year. And it wasn't, it was just coincidental. It had nothing to do with transfer portals and building the rosters and things, but we'll see.
Yeah, again, because they're more than likely, or at least like I'm not going to sit here and say no, like that's not why. But again, like it's 1 year. Like I don't want to overreact. Let's get 5 years of data point and see where we are. Not saying that we'll be in a different spot, but the one thing I don't think I mentioned when I talked about the championship game, of course, that fateful last play, and it's really hard in that moment. But again, I think you have to touch the ball. You have to take the travel. I think there would have been about 4.5 seconds left. Now, that doesn't, it's still very, very difficult. But, put a press on. Florida's going to have to take the ball in an awkward spot. Who knows? You get a deflection. Ball falls crazy. I don't know. But at the same time, in that moment, it's really easy for me to sit here, 3 days after, and after looking at it multiple times, for me to be like, this is what you should have done. When in reality, if I was on that court, I would have been folded and crying before the game even started with all those lights on me. So I agree with you. It's very, very unfortunate to see that happen on a national stage. And I do hope that he will, be able to brush this off. And even if he isn't able to, redeem himself or whatever, I just hope that he doesn't carry that with him for the rest of his life. And I hope that Houston fans don't carry that with him. I don't want to see a Bill Buckner, a Steve Bartman type thing. And nobody feels worse about that situation than him. That's what I always say.
And what was the resolution to them not allowing, after the Final Four victory, not allowing Elijah to go join the team?
Yeah,
that nonsense.
So I did see that video. That was, of course, when they beat Duke. Now, I do just want to say, I don't think, because I know there are a lot of people that are clowning on that security guard. I don't want to sit here and be that guy like, oh, he's just doing his job. But I mean, there is a very real chance he doesn't know who that guy is. And he's been told, don't let anybody on the court. I think there needed to be somebody on the Houston side of things that went, hey, someone needs to go tell that young man or that guy that, hey, he needs to come up here. And then I did see in the championship game, he was closer than he was. So I'm wondering if Houston gave him like, hey, we're going to put you so close that you're essentially on the court. But yeah, that was unfortunate. But again, I don't think that was because again, in this day and age, there are a lot of times where people see a video and they immediately say, oh, this is what's happening. And in this day and age, it's unfortunate when you see an African American or a black man talking with it, any authority, we just immediately, and I just think it was an honest mistake. I think Homeboy's just trying to do his job. Can't let anybody on the court. I apologize. Although when Hakeem Olajuwon is like 7'2", I think it's a pretty good assumption that this guy is probably, associated with the team. But yeah, just unfortunate. But I do think there were some people who blew it a little bit out of the water. Yeah. But yeah, it was probably not great for Hakeem to be like, wow, really? Okay, I'll just go back to my hotel now. Very unfortunate. But
yeah. And kudos to the young man going back to that last 6 seconds of the game. Kudos to the young man on Florida who had the wherewithal to throw himself at that ball.
Yep.
And smartly guard it so that nobody else was going to grab it. And it was funny because I'm watching it, and when it happened, I said, they're frozen. Houston's frozen. And there were two guys that were close enough. They might have been able to dive at it and call a timeout, or they didn't have any timeouts left.
Well, that's the
but
thing.
They could have dove at the ball at least. And it was like they couldn't fathom what was going on.
It's a very unbasketball. Like, you're not used to needing to go outside the 3-point line, gather, and yeah, I think it was foreign for everyone, including the defenders too, because you're right. Like even the on-ball defender at first kind of was like, wait, oh, I can touch this. Like everybody was just so, wait, what's going on?
And the look on Coach Sampson's
Oh,
face, that frozen stare, because it's like, as a coach in the moment, how he probably wanted to scream at that young man,
but
but he knows the time for screaming is
yeah,
done. It's
there's
over.
yeah,
But I mean, the look on his face is like, I can't imagine what it took for him to suppress his emotion at that point, and then have to go into the locker room and rally the troops and say, "Well, you guys did good, and for those of you who'll be back, we'll be back."
we'll see. Yeah, a lot of people putting Houston as their number one team next year, so I do believe we will see. I haven't seen the last of Houston, but kind of tie a bow on the 2024-2025 season. Raider Jim, your thoughts for a season that I think if we are going to probably remember anything, it will be that, there wasn't a whole lot of parity. But we did see kind of a wild Final Four, whether it was the choke job from Duke or that final play. But your kind of final thoughts on the 2024-25 season.
No, I mean, really, it was nice to see Michigan State back in the mix.
Yep.
And competing so well. Again, last year towards the tournament, you and I were saying, how could they be ranked, or how could they're not going to make it, but they made it, type of a thing. But this year it was nice to see Coach Izzo had his boys back, and it was sad to see him drop one. It was nice to see what St. John's could do, although they fell short. Of course, Gonzaga, they did what I was hoping they would do, and at least win the West Coast Conference tournament, and at least put a little bit of a, calm down on the, see, nope, nope, nope. They came back and they took care of business and had a nice first round game. That blowout game that they had, that was nice too. UCSD, when you talk about the transfer portal, there's the other kids. That team, I can't even imagine what's going to happen now, because if I'm not mistaken, UC Irvine went on and made it to the championship game of the NIT and lost.
Oh, heartbreaking.
That was a heartbreaking loss. But now we're going to see what's going to happen. Is UCSD going to be able to overcome losing their coach, losing their best players? They don't have a starting lineup at this point. So they're rebuilding after one appearance. But again, coach left, took his best guy with him to New Mexico, and we'll see what happens to them. Oh, it's going to be quite a period between now and June 30, because that is, for all intents and purposes, if by chance the courts get their stuff together, they're saying that it will become effective July 1. After July 1, any deal worth $600 is subject to scrutiny, if you will, by somebody. And it's like $600. Those kids are wearing shoes that are worth more than that right now. So we'll see what happens there. All in all, though, I enjoyed the season, as I usually do. I still would, if I was going to push for anything change in the game, in the broadcasting next year, I would say I would love to see, instead of pulling these guys when they're in the middle of the first half or interviewing them coming in and out, I would love to see them put heart rate monitors on the coaches and have it up in the corner of the, that would be something to watch.
Yeah, I've never really been a big fan of coach interviews. What is coach going to tell me that it is going to, yeah, every once in a while, maybe, but for the most part, it's cookie cutter answers. We got to work harder. We got to rotate. We got to get the ball to this guy. We got to spread the ball, but the thing that's really gotten me are the player interviews at halftime. Like, can we not? Like, these kids probably aren't overall media trained, and they're asking two questions too. That's the other part. You can tell some of these coaches and players, it's like, yeah, we're just gonna have to work hard in the second half, thinking, okay, I'll get that answer and I'll walk away. And then there's more, and it's just, I know it's written into the contracts and that stuff. I personally, baseball does it the worst ESPN interviewing players while they're in the field. Like what? Like, okay, in the All-Star game in spring training, whatever. But you're talking to Manny Machado while he's playing. Like, can we not? Anyways, thank you. You gave me
Well, and work the technology. If you're gonna do it, I can't tell you. I would say if I 3 out of every 4 interviews I saw, the poor player was looking down at the commentator going, "Huh?
yeah.
I can't hear you." I mean, they've got microphones and ear monitors. These kids are sitting there, 10 feet from 10,000 people screaming and the pep band playing. And they're like, I mean, one kid got a little bit, he says, "I keep telling you, I can't hear you. I don't know what the question is." And he said it sternly but politely. And I'm like, this kid has to get out there to get his warm up in to play the second half. Let him go.
Yeah. Yeah, it's very, very, very odd to me. I appreciate you bringing that up because I meant to bring that up. But my final thoughts, I think this is going to be interesting going forward because there's kind of been an elephant in the room that I don't want to say we haven't talked about. I mean, because when we dove into college basketball, we just dove kind of straight 2 feet in February. We had a lot of catching up to do. But the fact that next year we're going to be in the same conference. Our teams are going to be in the same conference, the Pac-12, or as I call it, the Pac-12 -4. Because as of right now, there's only 8 teams, but I mean, we got the Big 10 with 24 teams. We got the Big 12 with however many they have. I'm sure the Atlantic 10 has more than 10, so numbers don't matter anymore. But anyways, Gonzaga, joining Boise State, San Diego State. Do I have? Yes, I have them right here. Boise State, Colorado State, Fresno State, Gonzaga, Oregon State, San Diego State, Utah State, Washington State. So by my count, we are going to need to somehow, some way turn Gonzaga into a state school. And we'll have all state schools in that Pac-12 -4 right now. But that's going to be very interesting to me because just the way that looks to me, that is San Diego State and Gonzaga. Like, I think we're really going to see those two programs rise to the top. Obviously, Boise and Utah State are programs that have been around there. But when you think about actual success in the tournament, out of those 8 teams, San Diego State and Gonzaga have to be at the top. And I know Oregon had that really weird Final Four run like 5 or 6 years ago, but I'm talking like sustained success. Those are the blue bloods, if you will. I'll put them in air quotes there. So I'm really interested to see how that goes. Obviously, it's really difficult for me to kind of look ahead. It's kind of like what you alluded to, like, well, whoever's coming back, we'll see ya. But it's like, even for San Diego State, back in the day, the only question was, well, do they have eligibility left? Now, I know Guap is already in the transfer portal. Miles Bird is in the transfer portal. So, we'll see 12 new guys next year. Maybe it'll work. Maybe it won't. And then guess what? The year after, more than likely going to have to My question is, how long before Brian Dutcher goes, you know what? My buddy Steve called me up. He's drinking a pina colada at the beach right now, and I'm trying to figure out if this 22-year-old's going to come play for me again next year after I gave him $500,000. Maybe I want to go sit on a beach with a pina colada. So that'll be something to keep an eye on, but it's just really difficult to kind of really look ahead to next year when, again, it's like free agency. Like, okay, we lost 75% of our team. Well, until we put that together, I can't really give you a prognostication, but
Right.
definitely something to keep an eye on as we head into the off season. And look, before we know it, we're going to be hearing that dribbling of the basketball, the feast week. You'll be getting the relatives together for Thanksgiving, and we'll be getting ready to break it all down for you again. But Raider Jim, your final thoughts, just overall for this podcast here in the paint.
Hey, as always, honor to be part of your podcast, and hard to believe the time has gone by that fast, but guarantee you I'll do more homework during the off season, and I'll be fired up and ready to go come October 1st. And then we hit the ground running in November. I can't wait.
Amen. And I never ever like to correct you, but I am going to correct you on this. our podcast because look, just because I put my name on there, you are a integral part of this. Again, last week it was like 12 seconds in, dropping off a cliff, no Raider Jim, no audience. So it was great to get you back here today. My final thoughts, I have two. I'm going to start kind of somewhat, somberly and just a reminder for all of us. Unfortunately, this past week in the Dominican Republic, there was a very, very sad situation at a nightclub. I think one of the biggest nightclubs in the Dominican. Over 100 people passed away. Very sad. Unfortunately, Octavio Dotel was one of them. Not putting him above anyone else, but for me, a baseball fan, obviously Octavio Dotel for many years was in a lot of bullpens for major league teams. And another thing that I heard actually on the Padres broadcast on Wednesday, Nelson Cruz, he played with the Padres, but a longtime major leaguer. His sister, I believe it's Nelly Cruz, or Nelsie Cruz. I apologize. I might not have that correct. Just because Nelson and Nelsie. Anyways, she unfortunately did pass away. She was actually I think she was one of in the government for one of the territories, and this was a pretty incredible story. She actually was able to call the president of the Dominican Republic and kind of let him know what had happened, kind of, before anyone else really was getting it to him. She unfortunately did succumb to her injuries. Very, very sad. And for me, I think it's just a reminder again to just, whenever you get a chance to hug your loved one, give them a kiss, because you never really know when your number is going to be pulled. You're just out at a nightclub on a Tuesday or Monday, Tuesday night, and unfortunately tragedy strikes. Just make sure you tell people you love them, and treat people with respect and love as well. And then to kind of add a little cherry to it, I do want to shout out Alexander Ovechkin, because look, we don't really talk about hockey podcast, but I'm a hockey fan myself, and I personally did not think any of Gretzky's records would ever be broken. I certainly didn't think the goal record would be broken. Certainly didn't think it would be broken by a 39-year-old man who had a broken leg earlier this season. An unbelievable career for Alex Ovechkin. Very good to say, or very proud to see him win or break that record, I should say. And kind of what we see in the NBA with some of the older generation kind of maybe poo-pooing what the younger generation does, or the younger generation poo-pooing what the older generation does, all of the above. Hockey, it doesn't really seem to be that way. Wayne Gretzky was very, very happy for Alex Ovechkin, or at least appeared to be very happy for him, and was actually following for the last 3 or 4 games. While he was chasing it, he said when he broke Gordie Howe's record, he said, if someone ever breaks this record, I want to be the first one to shake their hand. He was able to do that. I just think it's a great, great story. And then I am going to pull out my soapbox real quick, because there are some people that have kind of poo-pooed this, because yes, Alexander Ovechkin is Russian, and he hasn't come out and waved a Ukrainian flag and stood in solidarity with Ukraine and what everybody wants him to do.
Yeah.
And I would like to remind those people, if you were in that camp, I don't think you truly understand what that would do. It might make you feel all warm and fuzzy inside. Unfortunately for Alex Ovechkin's extended family that are in Russia, they would not feel fuzzy inside. So again, we don't need to inject politics into sport. We just need to enjoy it. And there were very little discourse with that, but I did see some discourse. And look, keep that crap out of here. I'm sorry. You can go do that over there in your own little echo chamber, but you stay out of sports. Sports are toxic enough. We don't need political toxicity as well. But just wanted to kind of shout out Alexander Ovechkin, a fantastic career. And also, as a huge Wayne Gretzky fan, I still want to say, if you take all of Wayne Gretzky's goals away, he still leads the NHL in points, which is probably the most ridiculous stat in all of sports. But with that being said, thank you all so much for listening to this episode of the In the Paint podcast, presented by the First Off the Bench podcast network. Everyone comes off the bench. We are first. It is time for y'all to go wash your hands and stop hating everybody. We'll talk to y'all next year. Take care.
Next season.